Homegirl is hopeless like graciously as a whole no Wendy Williams as a sovereign of shade, and clearly subsequent to having discovered that her ex-Kevin Tracker was unloaded by his long-lasting escort Sharina Hudson. The previous television have couldn't shun offering a cheeky remark about this young lady and her expectations. Evidently, the finish of this 15-year-old undertaking makes Wendy feel good inside, and she's presently certain that Serena is as of now wanting to tempt one more numbskull with his pockets loaded with cash. Greetings everybody, and welcome back to Celeb Live Station. So Wendy Williams is discussing Sharina Hudson. Once more yet, it's not your thought process, folks. The television diva knows that this young lady will search for one more man with thick wallet and possibly break another family. So she is attempting to send an advance notice message to each man who needs to begin an issue with a young lady like this. That is what you get, how that the undertaking among Kevin and Serena is authoritatively over Wendy doesn't see the motivations to keep quietness, particularly considering the way that she had some significant awareness of their illicit relationship for a really long time. And since the separation, she was attempting to uncover SRI colors in her various after separate from interviews. Wendy was indicating that this young lady picked Kevin in light of the fact that he could give that rich and sumptuous life she had been longing for. It was one of these, not exactly shrewd ladies who moved to the large city with splendid lights. And it appeared as though Serena's fantasies were working out as expected, since the second Kevin Tracker looked at her. Evidently, Kevin couldn't avoid seeing the grinning young lady in a glossy dress, so he began an undertaking with her. And what a break it has been from an exhausting family routine. He had with Wendy an unhealthy work-life balance. Yet, as is commonly said, it takes two to tangle. So as Wendy said, she knew up and down that Serena would fundamentally lay down with any man in a room in the event that he was rich and sufficiently liberal. And sadly for Wendy, this man was her then. At that point, spouse, you realize Kevin's concern is that Kevin wound up getting with this young lady. She made herself entirely accessible to him. She was extremely rude to me. Well, no big surprise that Kevin was so anxious to keep this young lady in his life. And the main way he could do it, by giving her costly gifts. Far past her creative mind planner Saks Cafe's vehicles, Wendy duping husband had definitely no disgrace, and gone all out to satisfy his paramour. Since by what other method would you make sense of jobless Sharina Hudson getting out of another gold Ferrari Portofino? With base cost of $215,000 for Kevin, this issue probably been a much-needed refresher, and his chance to show himself as a rich individual and a provider, which was unthinkable with Wendy, since she was the primary superstar and was getting far more cash and attempting to demonstrate his masculinity. Kevin went to unfathomable connections, like supporting Sharina's business thoughts, and in any event, calling this young lady his perfect partner on his virtual entertainment. And assuming you believe that Kevin's stupidity halted here, evidently you don't have the foggiest idea about this man. Well, since he truly had faith in Sharina's affections for himself, and essentially threw 25 years of marriage into the garbage can with his assertions and activities, you realize individuals fall head over heels and out of affection each day, whatever, for anything reason. And Wendy permitted him to keep this with her and spending to get her gifts. She never stood up to him, feeling that this undertaking would be more than one day, and Serena would find somebody more youthful and more extravagant. Well, as a matter of fact, it finished suddenly for all sides when Hudson got pregnant. And this was the last straw for Miss Wendy. You realize unfaithfulness is one thing, a full child is an entire nother subject. And this was the second when things turned sour for both Kevin and Serena, on the grounds that Wendy was so wounded by such a disloyalty that she sought legal separation without reconsidering. And somewhere inside, she realized that these two wouldn't keep going all alone on the grounds that the main pace that held keeping them intact such an extremely long time, was Wendy's cash as the television diva, admitted she was monetarily free, and her vocation was taking off. She didn't require Kevin any longer, particularly with a child as an afterthought. It took me 20 years to separate from him, in light of the fact that the entire expert life improved, so Wendy was areas of strength for monetarily her own. And she maintained that Sharina should figure out reality with regards to Kevin's monetary circumstance. That is the reason she consented to pay him provision, essentially making him subject to her installments. And the television was correct on the grounds that when cash quit coming, Kevin transformed into a beast and showed his genuine nature. And this was the initial time when Sharina saw his real essence. It was anything but a hawker and maker, yet a man who was profoundly depending on his better half's cash, as Kevin requested of to the adjudicator, attempting to get provision back. The way that I can't support my life and cover my bills altogether is incredibly rising to me. I can't take care of my bills and support my everyday residing, so it doesn't come as a shock that Sharina rushed to gather her pack and leave this man. It was clear for Wendy that needed nothing else from him, except for his abundance, and carrying on with an exhausting existence with office work and bills was never her aim. You realize, I just felt like this wasn't for me. That anyway, very much like Wendy, many fans anticipated this result. And they say that Sharina ought to be embarrassed about herself for destroying the strong marriage and attempting to trick Kevin. This man's life had been very steady before he fathered a kid with Hudson. And his fans say he ought to have thought long and hard about engaging in this undertaking. It just left him broke, wiped out, and desolate. As one individual remarked, Kevin has been sitting without cash since February of 2022, without considering finding a new line of work. No reserve funds, no nothing, no hotcake income. And one more client added the way that he depends on her cash. For what reason mightn't he at any point hustle and get his own? He is residing over his means. And presently, it is the right time to address best of luck Kev. Obviously, it was the best choice in Wendy's life, in light of the fact that in the wake of singing the legal documents, she had become more sure, and in spite of the fact that she had expressed ordinarily that Kevin was her first love, the television diva wouldn't fret finding another man and falling head over heels again. The section with Kevin Tracker was at long last over for herself. And the main thing passed on to do to get the full fulfillment from this story is to hold on until Sharina dumps him too. So isn't being hitched is the sacred goal yet there. And it might have been a finish of the story on the off chance that Sharina didn't begin tossing shade at Wendy and blaming her for adapting the tale of her separation and hauling her legit name through the mud. Well, Wendy's chaotic separation has truly transformed into a narrative called What a Wreck. And this is the most effective way to portray all that was happening in her life. Well, Sharia was gnawing her nails out of misery, since even since the separation, she transformed into the most detestable individual in America, and individuals were watching all her means hanging tight for her to leave Kevin, so they could begin pointing fingers and calling out to her. And Wendy didn't conceal her desired truth. This sort of exposure for Sharina, my shortcoming. This is a situation that I've made for myself out of a terrible situation. So you see the reason why this young lady could never have left Kevin Tracker before. In spite of the coming neediness, she feared one more action made by Wendy and was trusting that the right second will say farewell to this dramatization. And since the news broke that Wendy was in the emergency clinic in basic condition, Sharina acknowledged it was her opportunity. Yet it seems like Wendy kept her eyes on that young lady, sitting tight for her to slip up. And since it's happened, the television diva chose to defy Sharina in her typical way, considering her a homewrecker, and reminding individuals that all that Hudson at any point needed from this family was cash. As Wendy said, she plotted this sort of exposure for Sharina starting from the beginning. And that is the reason her name springs up in the titles, again envisioning her in the awful light. And the young lady, she is currently on Impact getting banked by essentially everybody after the narrative was only the start of Serena's inconveniences. And now that she is on impact again in light of the fact that she was unable to try and stay close by and demonstrate that she was truly remaining with Kevin for affection and not cash, Wendy needs to uncover this voracious young lady considerably more before one more family is demolished from her activities. I need for individuals to learn life illustrations out of it. You realize I've had to deal with a ton of things, so perhaps you don't need to go through that. It appears as though Wendy is fulfilled to see the finish of this relationship. And despite the fact that it fundamentally demolished her life profession, she actually believes that the world should gain from this story, and as many individuals except Sharina will not have the option to pull another stunt like this in the future on the grounds that each individual understands what a contemptible lady she is. As one individual remarked, this man gets what he merits and his new lady shouldn't have anything to tell. Wendy owes her, not Kevin, nothing. The nerve of those two and one more client. Added Sharina stayed close by for a very long time as a side piece. Wow, assurance she had her eyes on Wendy's cash as well. And I'm happy it halted wealth. Serena's expectations of carrying on with a luxurious existence without applying any work has broken into pieces. And that is the reason Wendy brags over her mishaps. And since Wendy's hypothesis about Sharina being in this relationship for cash affirmed, she can't resist the urge to remind this young lady her legitimate spot. And what do you figure is Sharina Hudson? Another recurring bit of fun, all around the web-based entertainment. And will she take a delay prior to searching for another senseless support? Like Kevin, share your contemplations in the remarks underneath. I'm anxious to understand what you're thinking. And meanwhile, check my different recordings about this insane dramatization, well, that is in support of today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. And I vow to be back very soon.